Hi, Nate Mullen, aka The Illuminator. So anyway, we're back here now to start doing the critical 3, and I'm going to show you fusing and just a few other little things that we want to do for more really tricks and tips. So one of the first things that I like to do is I like to make sure that I put my knockout dead front back on with a 2-screw connector that securely holds the wire. So there's 3 things that are totally critical to really, well, I like to say, prevent anything hopefully happening in the future that we may or may not have done. So one of the first things I like to do is I like to make sure that I have, or I like to make sure I have and check my primary voltage. So I take my voltmeter and I make sure it's on the V with the squiggly line. It indicates, right, alternating current, not direct current, which would be the direct line. So I can take off, just unplug my cord, put my meter into the socket, and I've got 118.4 volts. Now, why this is critical, right? The power companies fluctuate their voltage up and down by sometimes as much as 10, 12, 13 volts. So if I'm trying to adjust my voltage in the daytime, which we all do, and I've got 12 volts at the hub, but I come back later and I might have 13 or 14 volts at the hub, I need to check and verify my primary voltage, because the primary voltage may very well have increased to 125 or 130 volts. Now I know it's not a problem that I've done, or if it's a problem with the transformer, it's a problem with the power utility company. So I'm going to come in here right now and I'm going to write primary voltage on my transformer, and it's 118.4. Okay, now the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my run number 9. I'm going to move the dial from my amp probe to amp squiggly line. So that's amps alternating current. What's an amp? I don't even care what an amp is. You're going to buy an RMS amp probe meter, and you're just going to look and read what the dial says. So you take the jaws, you put it around either one of the wires. You got to plug your transformer back in. It's a little test. And it says 1.6. All right? So now what I do is I take and I write down run number 9, description of the run, water fountain, volts at the point of the connection, which was 12.2 if I remember right, amps are 1.6, and I used a 12 volt tap. Okay, and I have a comment line right there if there's any comments that I want to put on it. All right, I could put hub number 1, I could put, right, hub number next to the sidewalk. Any type of a comment, descriptive comment, I think it may be relevant. All right. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to verify my primary volt amperage. We here give you a split wire, and we also give you a little loop wire right here. So we do the same thing. We take our amp probe, we run it around that wire, and it says 0.3. All right. So I've got 0.3. I take and I write that down here on my label, and I write down 0.3 amps. I look at my label, I have a 360 watt transformer, and it says maximum amps is 3. I have 3 amps, right? 0.3 amps. I have 2.7 amps that I have the ability to come back in and add, right? So there's a couple things that I may or may not decide to do. I'm a firm believer in I fuse per load. So I like to get closer. So at this point, what I would do is I would take my primary fuse out, I would go to my little fuse bag, and I would pull up a 2 amp or a 1 amp fuse. And I just simply replace it back here. And the reason I do that, if something develops downstream in my wiring system or something at the transformer, it's immediately going to blow the fuse. And I like that, so I have instant fuse protection. The other thing that I like, I can't stand a homeowner ever dealing with my lighting system. I don't want them to add lights, I don't want them to touch them, I don't want them to add light bulbs. So now I know if they've altered my lighting portrait, and I have a 1 amp primary fuse, and the system blows. Here's what happens. Homeowner picks up the phone and calls me, and I'm like, did you touch the system? Of course, every time they say no. So I go out to the field, I grab Mr. Amp Probe, because Mr. Amp Probe never lies. I put it around the wire, and what do you know? It says 2.5. Now I know somebody has messed with me because I look at my label and the label said it was 0.3. primary fuse is blown, it's done its job because somebody's added something. And now I can go and I can further investigate. What did they add? So at this point now I come back, because I might have multiple wires here. I come back and I go, well, run number 9 used to have 1.6, has 1.6. I go to run number 2, used to have 1.4, now it has 15. That's my problem run. I look at the description, hub number 2, I go and identify the problem, and I start my process of elimination. So this is key for troubleshooting. All right, now the next thing I want to show you is we give you several fuses here in a little fuse bag. This is added protection now. I've already protected myself with the primary fuse that'll protect me from downstream and the 110 side. It comes with a 20 amp fuse already pre-installed. All right, so I'm going to set that aside just for a minute, because I want to make sure that it's right here. Keep this open because I want to make sure I fuse per load too. So now what I simply do is I take off the power of the transformer. I come over, and you can fuse common or hot side. We typically fuse the common side. There's no difference between fusing the hot or the common side, anything. I just tell you to be consistent, so you're always consistent with your guys. Always fuse either one, and I don't care which one you fuse. You're going to get consistent that there's writing. I typically say the writing is the identified conductor, and that's my common. So you're going to take this. Let me grab the wire nuts, which are in our bag of goodies right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and use my wire nut. I really want you to make sure you use a really good tight deal. Pull on the wires, make sure they don't come back out. This baby right here, it's going to go back in. We're going to take it and we're going to put our grease onto this. It's good habits. This is going to go right into there. Tighten that up. That's as fast and simple as it takes. Doesn't take long. Now what was our amperage? We look at our schedule. It was 1.6 amps. I grab a 5 amp fuse, put the 5 amp fuse, and what you want to make sure in a fuse, all fuse holders are the same. Make sure that this tab does not go on the back side of the female to the rubber insulation. Make sure you're going right into the mechanical part of it. Get in there tight. Make sure there's lots of grease in there. And that baby is ready to go. All right, I think that's it. We've done the critical 3. We've checked the primary voltage. We've checked the primary amperage. We've checked the secondary amperage. Everything's conforming. We've replaced the primary amp fuse down to 1 and second amp fuse 2. See you guys. Be delighted.